It's so good to be back in Cape Town. I think I should move back, mostly just for not just for net profit, but for all you wonderful people. I see some people I recognize, but with the spotlight in my eyes. So, Net Profit emailed me a couple weeks ago and said, "Mish, don't you want to come to Net Profit and talk about everything tech, race, gender, diversity in South Africa, and because of your travel across SSA?" That's a lot of stuff to want to talk about. So like the true millennial that I am, I have my phone with me with notes because this is such an important topic. It's such an important subject, not just for South Africa, but for the world at large, that I felt that I could not take it lightly. And I consulted quite a few people before I came here today to make sure that the right things are discussed when we talk about race and gender in terms of tech and entrepreneurship, and also that everyone doesn't get defensive about the topic. I think that whenever you go to a company and go, let's discuss the diversity issue in your company, let's talk about race, let's talk about gender, people get very protective and very defensive. And they don't need to be, because I don't see a problem as much as an opportunity. An opportunity for us to create and build change that doesn't impose unnecessary things on people, but change that can build a profound and important career path for many people, change that is necessary. And I don't think we need to actually sit and talk about just how important this is, because it really, really is, not just because you should, because let's face it, you should, but because it actually makes business sense. I mean, Net Profit's logo is like making sense, making business sense of the internet. It really makes business sense. And McKinsey and company did a study that said that companies with a diverse gender leadership made 15% more profit. Companies that had a racially and ethnically diverse leadership made 35% more profit. I mean, can you really argue with that seriously? I'm asking. This is a two-way street, guys. You have to talk to me. Thank you. Thank you for the few that agree they have to talk to me. So I thought that I can't answer or talk about everything tech, diversity, race, and gender, because if I'm being honest, and I would like to be, I don't know everything race, gender, and in terms of tech. And I was very, very privileged in my previous job when I was at Meanburn. Shout out to the Meanburn guys if you're in the room. Woot! When I was at Meanburn, I got to travel around Africa. I think people just thought I lived on a plane and didn't really have a real job. But I got to travel around Africa to really learn about what technology was doing and how it was helping people. So I thought I'll look at it in two ways. How we can improve the diversity and gender gap in the tech industry in South Africa, and hopefully Africa-wide, and how those solutions, or tech solutions, can help with gender and race problems that we currently face. And I don't think I work for Google, so Google is a company of big. People like to throw big numbers. They want to go, by 2017, we would like to increase our leadership base of with a diversity number of X many percentage and blah, 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 fish pace. What is really important is that you make real practical changes that actually affects change. When you look at South Africa as a country, South Africa is a very young country. I know it feels like a really long time ago with all the problems we're having. I watched Parliament 2 days ago. So we have a lot of problems, but it's a young country. And it's a country that it is going to take time to solve a lot of problems of imbalance. That is very true, and we have to really be honest about that. I think we are kidding ourselves if we sit here and pretend that people say to me, I don't see color, I don't see gender, I see people, cool people. I love that word, cool people. That's bullshit. We have to really, really be honest with ourselves when we talk about race and gender. And in business, not just tech and business across, we have to really be honest with ourselves. And if we have an honest conversation, we will see that it's not about X many percentage or X many people by the end of X year. It's about really thinking about simple, practical solutions from the ground up. Internships, for instance. I know we all heard the debacle about the internship a couple months ago. I'm not going to mention names. If all internships, especially in the tech industry, are paid, that on its own balances our privilege. When I moved to Cape Town, I moved to a startup that was literally in its first months. I was a lecturer when I moved. I was making more money teaching as a graduate student than I was going to make as a journalist doing a tech job. If I hadn't saved up because I lived in my father's house when I was teaching, I would never have been able to afford to live in Cape Town. Actually, who here in Cape Town can truly, really afford to live in Cape Town? Be honest. Be really honest about that. Seriously. I would never have been able to do that if I didn't have that kind of slush fund and knowing that if push came to shove, my uncle lives in Milnerton and I could just run to his house. I had that privilege to have support around me. Very few people have that. If you expect an intern to come learn because you are going to give them this great knowledge to move them forward, and this intern is going to provide their own transport, their own lunch, if you really expect them to come to you and grow this pool, you're going to get a few, very, very few people who are going to be able to do that. And if you cannot pay them very well, which is understandable, especially for the startups in the room, at least feed them. Seriously, just feed them. You have no idea how much that changes things. And that might seem that seems so basic. Why internships to solve our big diversity crisis? Imagine if that intern you paid to do an internship work for 3 months ended up helping you build a great solution, and the next thing you know, that person is running their own company someday or is in a leadership role in your company. That's a future plan. That's not just 3 months. That's the person's future you're working with. And if we go, okay, great, let's try and make the internship thing work. That's a practical solution to creating transformation. Then we have to think about where we live and where we are. I was in Germany a couple months ago, and I went to one of the spaces to watch entrepreneurs pitch, because I love watching entrepreneurs pitch. It's one of my favorite things to do. And all the entrepreneurs pitched in German. And I found out I don't understand German, so this is particularly interesting for me. They all pitched in German, and then some guy from the UK came up, and he pitched. He pitched in English, but there was a translator there for him. This is something I never would have thought of before my whole life, and actually, my friends at Meanburn helped me also understand this a little bit more as well, is that South Africa, most of the time when you pitch to investors in South Africa, and I've been in these rooms where you have an Afrikaans investor, you've got maybe one English investor, a Sotho Xhosa investor, and you've got a Zulu person pitching. None of those people have the first language English, but yet we're pitching in English. Why? You guys don't know either? Okay. English may be the language of business. And I agree, I get that, it really is. Except when you talk to the Chinese and they'll tell you different. English may be the language of business, but why are we not making a concerted effort to young entrepreneurs who English isn't their first language, and they try to pitch in English, who English isn't their first language, we're not actually making a concerted effort to understand their business a little bit better, even if they couldn't articulate it as well in their pitch. So things like that. We need to start thinking about things like that. And then there's a lot of, while I was in Germany, I also met a company who did have a big number quota to fill to make that diversity averages or their diversity quotas by the end of the year. But one of the ways they're doing that is whenever they get a CV, there's a panel of people that look at it. There has to be a woman, there has to be a person of color, there has to be a person of from a different industry or from a different part of the business from what they're actually looking for. A diverse range of people that actually look at a CV. So we end up not picking people with algorithms of, okay, I'm looking for a journalist to fill this role. Oh, this person went to Rhodes, they must be good. Oh, I'm looking for a developer, that person went to UCT, let's pick that person. We're not picking people as humans, we're picking people almost like computers would. Like a computer would spit out a code and say, this person's algorithmically more important or more qualified for this job, without us actually knowing it. So we actually have to think about things like that from a practical point of view. And transformation in technology, especially entrepreneurship, if we're really honest, I went to school at UKZN, and a lot of the people I went to school with, young, black, talented people that was at university with me, when we graduated, They all went to work for either Unilever, the government, or Coca-Cola. None of them was thinking about entrepreneurship. None of them was thinking about a job in journalism. They thought I was nuts. I was nuts. But entrepreneurship is not a viable option for most young black people or people of color, simply because, anyone heard of black tax? Yes, no? One person in the whole room heard of black tax? You guys need to read more. Anyway, black tax is a real thing. I mean, people joke about it a lot, but it's a real thing. Most young black people that graduate, they are either the first to graduate their family in this country, and they are expected to take care of the rest of their family. That person will not work for a startup. They can't afford to. They just can't. That person needs to go work for a corporate that's going to cover medical, that's going to provide pension and things like that. They need to be able to take care of their family. I know South Africa loves its BE and black empowerment and all of that stuff, which is really great. But what South Africa really, really needs right now is entrepreneurial empowerment. The state has to make it a point to build up entrepreneurs. South Africa's got a 35% youth unemployment, and that's not going to solve itself. It's not going to solve itself if we're just sitting around and more people are going to corporate jobs. New jobs need to be created. There are not enough jobs for all these people. Who's going to create the jobs? That's a question. Who's going to create it? Entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are going to build companies. Their companies are going to scale. They're going to employ people. Those people are possibly going to build more things and scale and build more companies. But that will never happen if the state doesn't make a concerted effort to create a reform within its legislature to build an entrepreneurial economic empowerment that allows young people to take care and take hold of their future. So that's a really important thing. But how does all this help with technology in solving the problems, the race and gender problems? And this part of it, I actually struggle with a bit because technology is a tool. You can do with it what you will. Trust me, I work for Google. I've seen what people do with Google. You can do with technology what you will. And an example that was given to me yesterday was, well, what about Fees Must Fall? You know, that was a tool, a way that these young people, they galvanized and they built a movement, and we saw change. They brought government to halfway to their knees. And that's really great. That really is great. South Africa's got, depending on who you ask, about 30 million people online. And depending on who you ask, about 60 million of those people have smartphones. But if we're being honest, maybe 6 million of those people actually use their smartphones because data costs are a nightmare. You buy 1 gig of data, again, depending on your provider, maybe 100 to 150 bucks. If you don't use that data in 30 days, they take it away. How's that fair? Seriously, they take it away from you. You pay 700 bucks for 50 gigs of data in your house. If you don't use it, they take it away. They don't let you keep more. People are so data conscious that technology can't be as useful in their life as it needs to be. And here I have to give props to Alan. I know Alan's coming to speak later with Project Seasway. We need to take away the barriers that technology has right now before we can start thinking of building things. People love to say, I'm going to build an app for this. Last year, I think there was a venture bus, and I was talking to someone who was on it and said, we sat there and a bunch of European people said, let's build an app to solve a problem in Khayelitsha. And he had to turn around and say, do you guys actually know where Khayelitsha is or what it is? I know you heard it a lot, we've thrown it around, but do you actually know? And I think there's a certain, no offense to all the entrepreneurs in the room, but there's a certain arrogance we get as humans that we can build things, people must want it, so we should build it. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You should find out what they need or if they can actually use what you're going to build. And that's really, really important. And if I'm thinking of, so I'm just being conscious of time, if I'm thinking about, where we are as a country, 6 years ago when I started at Mimba, and I see So much change has actually already happened. Even on the net profit stage, guys. I mean, remember a couple years ago, there was that big whole debacle. There's a lot has happened. And I think a lot more needs to happen, but we have to be very, very honest about what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. You should do it because it makes profit sense, diversity-wise. We should make access should be a right, it shouldn't be a privilege. Access to information, access to tools that can help you build your business, access to a way of life. It should be a right, not a privilege. There's a really great program that by a company called Liberty Africa, called Digify, where they take young people and they train them in digital tools. The idea is online marketing, how to build digital strategies, and they've had a 100% success rate with, it's a small group, it's about 20 people per class called Digify. And all these people, when they graduate, they have been placed in an agency. These are people that had no knowledge, no skills. They graduated high school, didn't know what to do next. They spent 3 months in this program, and they have jobs. That's actual real change. That's real way technology is not only changing the lives of these people, and they pick people from previously disadvantaged backgrounds. This is a way technology really is making an impact. But it's a practical solution. It's not, we want X. Even if you do want X, make sure you put in practical steps to actually build X. I'm going to finish off by putting a challenge to everyone, because Rob really likes his challenges, and I've got a challenge in my head now. I think that Cape Town, South Africa at large, needs to really stop getting defensive about diversity. You cannot get defensive about race and gender. It's all around you. Seriously, 50% of the population of women people. You gotta deal with that. We have to think about how do we solve these problems little by little, that by the time we get to our pie in the sky ideas, it doesn't seem so much like pie in the sky. Thank you.